I was just an ordinary CEO in City A, ordinary, but not blind. One night, staring at the surveillance monitor, I watched the unthinkable, our nanny, Maria, quietly swapping her own baby with mine. My face froze, confusion crashing in. Was the world insane? Maybe. But I wasn't going to sit still. Right there, I told the technician, pointing at the progress bar. 5 minutes ago, zoom in on Maria's face. And when footage played back, her tearful voice filled the room. Baby, one day you'll thank mommy for giving you a better future. Why should my child be doomed to live like a servant's kid? Her words cut like glass. But in my hand, I held the truth, the paternity test proving the child she stole was never hers to take. She didn't know I'd arranged it, or that I was watching every second from the nursery cameras. So I walked in myself, switched the babies back, and carried my daughter home. From that day on, Maria pampered my child like her own, while quietly destroying her real daughter. And I let her. Because if I hadn't been cautious, it would have been my daughter suffering. Years passed. My wife sometimes stepped in, unable to watch Maria's cruelty. But I stayed quiet, calculating. Eventually, Maria tried to vanish back to the countryside with her own child, afraid, I think, that the truth would catch up to her. I let her go. Better that way. Still, my wife looked at me with suspicion. Why does Maria look at you like that? Did you have something with her? I shook my head and told her everything. The baby switch. The lies. The betrayal. She finally understood. And her only response was cold, sharp, serves them right. Let her suffer. But life wasn't finished with us yet. When our daughter entered kindergarten, her homeroom teacher started circling me like a vulture. She reposted my wife's photos, whispered criticisms, sent flirty messages as if testing boundaries. My wife wanted to fight her, literally. But I reminded her, don't destroy her with fists, destroy her with proof. So together, we exposed the teacher's schemes. Every luxury photo, every happy family moment, we posted it. The teacher cracked, accused us of fakery, and finally crossed the line with indecent messages. That's when I gathered the evidence and sent it to the Education Bureau. Overnight, she was gone. Her career, her reputation, finished. For a while, we had peace. Or so I thought. Because life has a cruel sense of humor. During a charity visit to an orphanage, a small girl tugged on my sleeve, tears in her eyes, and whispered a word that froze my blood, Dad. And as my daughter looked up at me, pleading, I realized, no matter how many battles I win, the past will always find a way back to me. My daughter's heart was too soft, and her taste in people, tragically naive. The girl she begged us to bring home turned out to be a master manipulator. At first, my wife brushed it off. She treated both girls as if they were truly her own. But soon, the orphans started weaving stories, crying to my wife, whispering that her sister bullied her. At night, she crept into our room, clung silently to my wife, and painted herself as the helpless victim who had no parents, no love, only cruelty from her so-called sister. Meanwhile, my daughter knew nothing of these accusations. She was living her days unaware of the poison being poured into everyone's ears. One evening, my wife, frustrated, was ready to scold our daughter. But I stopped her. Instead, I showed her the footage. Every word, every crocodile tear was there on screen. The truth hit hard. My wife's fury burned instantly. She wanted to throw the girl out that very night. But I held her back. If we chase her away now, I said, what lesson will our daughter learn? And my wife, though still trembling, agreed. The girl's sob stories didn't fool us, but they fooled the nanny. Soon, our loyal servant turned against my daughter, whispering cruel things like, if you weren't master and madam's real child, I'd swear you were picked up from a garbage dump. No elegance at all. She even scolded, you can't tolerate second miss? She's just a poor orphan. My daughter finally snapped. She confronted the girl, demanding, why are you lying about me? The girl's eyes welled with tears, her voice trembling. Sister, I never said that. Maybe you misunderstood. And just like that, the blame shifted again. Soon, people's attitudes toward my daughter soured, until the matter reached me and my wife. I didn't shout. I only smiled. Did she really not know? Our home was covered with cameras. Every corner recorded. I replayed the evidence, then looked at my daughter. Well, what do you think now? Her lips pressed shut, her world cracking. She had begged for this girl. She had cried to bring her home. Now, her voice was barely a whisper. Dad, I was wrong. I'll never do this again. The nanny was fired that same day, erased from our household and company records. And as for the orphan, no adoption papers had ever been signed. I gave her money, called it tuition for the lesson she taught, and put her on a plane overseas, out of our lives forever. By the time my daughter entered junior high, I thought maybe the storm had passed. Her grades were dazzling, first in the entire city. With results like that, why waste money on a so-called elite academy? Those schools were playgrounds for rich kids who couldn't keep up. But the internet doesn't care about truth. Because she didn't attend the elite school, rumors spread like wildfire. Strangers accused her of being a fake heiress, pretending to be rich. They filled her comment sections with poison, calling her a fraud, a cheater. My daughter, furious, was ready to fight them all online. But I knew better. Every word they typed was nonsense. Why? Because I knew how hard she worked. My wife and I studied with her every night. She explained lessons back to us using the Feynman method, until her knowledge rivaled that of her teachers. And they dared to say she cheated? Ridiculous. Unless they believed her clueless parents took the exam for her. But lies spread fast. Even her classmates turned on her, led by a girl she once tried to help, a little white flower, poor and bitter. My daughter had offered her kindness, even advice. Eat well, sleep well, or you can't study properly. But resentment twisted those words, and soon the girl was leading the charge to isolate her. When I heard it all, something in me shifted. My daughter wasn't a child anymore. She was standing taller, speaking with reason and clarity, her voice steady. Dad, Mom, now I see. She's just like the orphan I once begged you to take in. And in that moment, I realized my daughter had grown. But the world wouldn't stop testing her. Every walk, every outing, there were always people, girls, parents, trying to trip her, scratch her, pull her down. It was as if her light drew out the shadows in others. Eventually, I moved us into a quiet villa of our own. Safer walls. Safer streets. At least here, no one could bump into my daughter by accident. But the internet? That was a different battlefield. For the first time, she truly felt the cruelty of strangers online. Dad, should I answer them? She asked, her voice carrying both hurt and doubt. All up to you, I said softly. That night, she didn't sleep. She scrolled through every hateful comment, line by line. And instead of breaking down, she wrote notes, extracting every bit of criticism that could actually help her. It was like watching a child shed his skin and step into adulthood overnight. From then on, no more luxury posts. No more flaunting. Instead, she came to me with a proposal, her own small business plan. That summer, she worked harder than most grown men I knew. Trading grain in the mornings, delivering takeout at noon, studying high school textbooks at night just so she could teach me and her mom. By September, she wasn't just taller, already 1.7 meters, she was smarter, stronger, and 3 years ahead in her studies. High school came, and with it, a top-ranked academy. She'd earned her spot, highest score in the city. But shadows from the past still followed her. Rumors whispered that her brilliance was fake, that she'd surely be caught cheating. And then came the first mock exam. My daughter didn't just take first place, she shattered the school's record, outscoring everyone by nearly 20 points. Immediately, the whispers turned venomous again. She must have bought the answers. With her family's money, anything's possible. But she didn't lash out. She simply picked up her pen, worked problems all night, and then hopped on a shared bike to deliver food. No one knew her face. No one called her rich. Every order completed was her own victory. And I admired that. My wife wanted to fight back, to run to the teachers. But I stopped her. For a student, grades are the sharpest weapon. Explanations mean nothing. Sure enough, on the second exam, she widened the gap again, another 20 points higher. A 140 in Chinese alone. Who cheats their way into that? No one. Slowly, the tide turned. Classmates stopped doubting. Some even wanted to befriend her. My daughter had her own rules. Those who had once bullied her, she avoided. Those who had never spoken ill, she welcomed. Unite all the forces that can be united, she told us one night with a calm wisdom that humbled even me. She smiled at everyone, even under pressure, but God helped the person who crossed her bottom line, because she would never forgive. In those moments, I realized,
She wasn't just our daughter. She was already wiser than both of us.
Life was calm, until food delivery nearly became her downfall. She'd discovered a breakfast shop, cheap and delicious, and wanted to bring it for the entire school.
I stopped her immediately. Food safety is a red line.
If someone gets sick, they'll blame you. Remember that.
She backed down.
Days later, another classmate tried the same stunt, only to be buried under complaints of cold buns and food poisoning.
My daughter looked at me with gratitude in her eyes. She'd learned. But danger wasn't done circling her.
One day, she mentioned someone giving her milk out of nowhere.
I snatched it from her hand and gave it to the dog.
From now on, anything random you're given? Straight to the dog. A few days later, a girl from her class dropped out with an illness and was later seen eating bones off the ground.
My wife and I shivered at the thought.
And then came another intrusion. Classmates following my daughter home, desperate to sit at our table, begging to eat just one meal with a golden spoon. As if that single bite could swap their fate with hers. But the strangest thing was yet to come. One day, the neighbor's son became their daughter. No one seemed to notice, except the three of us.
It was then my daughter began to suspect what I had long feared. There were things in this world, not quite human.
Over the years, my wife and I began to notice something chilling. Those wild short story scandals we'd read online?
They weren't fiction. They were happening to our daughter.
That's why we built backup plans, carved out multiple paths into Peking University. Because if her college entrance results were ever tampered with, we needed insurance.
She thought we were paranoid. Until exam day.
She walked out of that hall glowing. The exam had gone beautifully. Better than ever. But when results were released, her name showed a score of just 200 points. Someone else had been given her 751.
751. Nearly 40 points higher than her usual. She'd shattered her own record that day.
And now she was left with nothing but humiliation.
The internet pounced.
They dug up old photos, reposted clips of her delivering food, even claimed she'd cheated her way into high school years ago.
The insults piled on.
Copycat queen, cheating every damn day. She always had her phone during exams, except this one. That's why she tanked. Of course she got plastic surgery, rich family, fake face.
Every word was poison. I was ready to explode. But my daughter, she stayed calm. Her Douyin flooded overnight. The video about her 200 points got 5 million likes.
100 million eyes watched her fall, and 500,000 new followers gathered, most just to throw stones.
She waited. Silent. Letting the storm build.
Then, when the noise peaked, she dropped her truth like a bomb. A photo of last year's score report, 719 points. She'd taken the exam early in her second year of high school and qualified for a special youth program. She didn't take it because it locked her into a single school. And alongside that, she posted her national first prize in mathematics. Her caption was simple, sharp. Since you're so good at digging up information, why don't you check last year's scores instead of obsessing over this year? Has it ever occurred to you that maybe I just took the exam for fun?
It clicked instantly. A math prodigy scoring low because she wasn't trying?
That made sense.
And last year's score couldn't be faked.
The narrative flipped overnight. People weren't just angry anymore. They were obsessed. Traffic surged, comments exploded, but the malice didn't disappear. I wanted to march us into Peking University's admissions office, force them to issue a statement, clear her name once and for all. But she refused.
No, Dad.
Even if they defend me, people will just say the competition was rigged, or that we bought influence. They'll never believe it's me. The only way to shut them up is with something so real it smacks them in the face. That summer, while she steeled herself, my own company collapsed.
Years of work gone.
But I had prepared, bought up the land around our factory long ago.
And so, we weren't ruined. We were landlords now. Big landlords. And my daughter? Our little landlord. We moved to the capital.
She slipped easily into a research lab at Peking University. Soon, we saw her less and less, except for family dinners on weekends.
She was thriving.
And for us, that was enough.
Until Maria came back.
The woman who once swapped babies walked up to Peking University's gate, her daughter trailing behind her, thin, dark-skinned, weary. And then, she dropped to her knees. "Daughter," she cried, "I shouldn't have switched you back then."
I watched as the crowd swarmed, as Douyin lit up with the scene. Strangers shouting.
So this fake heiress was never real. Get a DNA test. Look at the real one, skin and bones, not cared for a day in her life. And once again, my daughter's life was pushed into the center of a storm. Was this going to turn into another story of, you lost wealth, but I lost family?
I wasn't about to let that happen.
I dug out the old paternity test, proof that my daughter was truly ours. I had been careful back then, printed copies, photos, even a web link saved away. I pressed them into her hands and told her to post them. The twist stunned everyone. Maria's daughter's pitiful eyes might win sympathy online, but I knew better. I remember the bruises, the time she had raised a hand against my child. My loyalty, my love, would never waver. And yet, the attention only grew heavier. Her follower count shot higher and higher, but to her, it felt less like fame and more like a burden. So after the paternity test dropped, she quietly deactivated her account and moved to live on campus. That's when everything changed. She was brought into a new military research project, work that placed her firmly under state protection. For the first time, my wife and I breathed freely. She was safe. And so, while she studied, we wandered. For years of travel across China, then beyond, to other countries. By the time we returned, she had transformed into someone dazzling, a young scientist in a white lab coat, tall and sharp as a dagger, her presence commanding every room. My wife ran to her with tears in her eyes, asking, "Daughter, did you get the postcards I sent you?"
She smiled gently.
"I got them, Mom. Don't worry, I'm doing great. But I've still got a long road ahead. The institute wants me to keep going, maybe all the way to postdoc."
I waved it off.
"My good girl, you don't need to repay us.
You already belong to the country now. We have more than enough.
Just focus on your research."
Her smile deepened.
"Without you, I wouldn't be this happy."
She meant it. And we believed it. Years passed.
She was accepted again into Peking University, this time on a master's and doctoral track. The online storms had quieted, replaced by respect. Finally, people saw her for what she truly was, a prodigy.
But new storms were always waiting.
Now, speculation turned to love. Everyone wanted to know, who would stand beside her. One day, a woman appeared at our door claiming to be my wife's long-lost best friend.
My wife didn't recognize her at all. Beside her stood a smug young man named Makoto.
He announced, since we had a childhood engagement, she should marry into my family. I'll take responsibility for her.
I nearly laughed. Responsibility? He was just another moth drawn to her light.
In fact, they were everywhere. Old men accidentally falling in front of her, only for their wealthy grandsons to appear. Strangers injured at her feet, always high-powered executives. Even twins camped outside her lab as if destiny itself had sent them.
But my daughter's heart was steel. She brushed them all aside. Except one.
A boy she had known since high school. Talented, brilliant, someone who had clawed his way into Peking University on his own merit. They studied the same major, joined the same institute, and over the years, their bond only deepened. I admit, I didn't like him.
My wife did. And maybe that's why I stayed quiet.
Because despite my doubts, I could see, he was her choice. By 24, she walked into the registry with him and walked out married. No announcement, no warning.
She simply told us afterward.
My wife's eyes filled with tears.
"Why didn't you tell us?
We wouldn't have stood in your way." She whispered back, "I was afraid.
His family is poor.
I thought you wouldn't approve."
But love doesn't care for wealth or status.
She chose him, and that was enough.
And strangely, after the marriage, all those bizarre encounters stopped. No more sudden accidents. No more strangers pulling at her life.
For the first time, peace settled around her.
Until I remembered. That girl.
That orphan she once pitied, the one who had lived with us for a time. I looked at my daughter, searching her face. "Do you remember her?" I asked. Her face went pale instantly. "Think about it. Has this boy really been by your side all these years?" The moment I said it, I saw the flicker in my daughter's eyes, like a reel of memories suddenly rewinding. Back in high school, she had been surrounded by whispers, by rumors. Never once had there been a boy constantly at her side. And then, university. Every research project, every sleepless night, every breakthrough, she had done it alone. Yet when the papers were published, there were two names. His name always first, simply because of the alphabet. That's when the truth hit her. Her voice cracked. Dad, what if I've been tricked? But I've already married him.
I told her not to worry.
We had gone to the state before, when they called her exam score a statistical error. The truth was, she was too valuable to be left exposed. They had placed her into a top-secret national lab, hidden from those who wanted to tear her apart.
So we reported him.
And the investigation began.
What they found chilled us.
This boy, this husband, had appeared out of thin air. Everyone seemed to remember him.
Teachers, classmates,
neighbors. But when the officials searched for proof, there was nothing.
His home?
Empty.
His history? A void. He had never existed.
My daughter collapsed, sobbing. And in that moment, I knew she still longed for a partner, someone real, someone who truly loved her. I tried to comfort her. Maybe there's someone out there you've overlooked. Someone who's always admired you, quietly, from the shadows.
But she only shook her head.
Her voice trembled. Dad, am I so lonely that someone who doesn't exist had to be created for me?
Sometimes I wonder if I'm dreaming.
Why would the heavens treat me this way?
I held her close, even as my chest ached. I don't know, my girl. But your mom and we'll never leave you.
We'll be here.
Always. Her reply shattered me. Dad.
Mom, what if even you aren't real?
That was when it struck me. What if she was right?
What if my daughter was the only true soul in this entire world, and the rest of us were nothing more than orbiting satellites, existing only for her?
And then, a voice. Cold. Mechanical.
Host detected to be awakened. Do you wish to exit this world?
Tears spilled down her cheeks.
She turned to me, broken. Dad, so you were already dead.
Just a copy.
A program I wrote myself. Willow pulled off her virtual reality glasses, and the world shattered. The 22nd century.
An era ruled by technology.
Born in the slums, she had clawed her way up with nothing but brilliance, instinct, and relentless drive. She had built an empire out of virtual reality itself, machines that allowed anyone to live another life, to be the center of their own story.
But Willow knew the truth. It wasn't just about escaping into a dream. It was about using that dream to transform the real version of yourself.
On her desk sat a photo, yellowed, fragile. Her parents, smiling as they held her in their arms.
The last image before their deaths.
When she touched it, the lab's holograms flickered, replaying memories of a girl in patched clothes, lifted high into the sky by love. And though my body had long since dissolved, my consciousness had crossed with her invention. I had come into the real world with her. I could finally let go. And even if I was never truly her father, she would always be my daughter. Because love, real love, doesn't vanish. Not in dreams, not in programs, not in any world.